The void between worlds trembled, not with natural force, not with gravity or matter, but with the subtle, twisting currents of the warp itself. A rift had opened, a fracture in the very fabric of reality, tearing through dimensions, timelines, and universes. Stars twisted unnaturally in the distance, their light bending, stretching, fracturing, as if the cosmos itself was struggling to comprehend the anomaly. Through this impossibly narrow corridor of existence, two beings were drawn. One, a titan of infinite pride, armor gleaming with gold, a presence that radiated psychic might and command over billions of souls. The other, a figure of unmatched cosmic will, violet and gold, muscles and armor fused into an embodiment of unstoppable purpose. Thanos and the Emperor of mankind. Not by accident, not by chance, but by the currents of the warp, which had chosen to merge their paths, forcing two gods to confront one another. The rift itself screamed, a soundless shriek of light, shadow, and raw energy. Thanos felt the pull immediately, a pressure that tugged at the edges of his mind, challenging even his resolve and patience. The Infinity Gauntlet pulsed, sensing the subtle shifts of time and space, its stones vibrating faintly in recognition of the other presence. The Emperor, standing aboard the golden throne within the Immaterium, felt the anomaly like a wound in the warp, threads of energy tugging, bending, and for the first time in millennia, his attention was forced entirely outward, toward a cosmic force that rivaled his own. His mind extended, probing the rift, calculating trajectories, possibilities, and the inevitability of collision. The rift tore open fully. Time bent, reality folded, and both beings were pulled into the same point of existence. They emerged simultaneously, Thanos' violet eyes gleaming beneath the ruined helm, the Emperor's gaze radiant and absolute, power coiling around him like a tide of psychic light. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The cosmos paused. Even the warp itself seemed to hesitate, coiling threads of energy and unspooling them in careful observation. Two forces of immeasurable strength, one guided by a philosophy of balance through death, the other guided by the burden of preserving humanity. They were the arbiters of fate, suddenly placed in proximity by a force beyond even their comprehension. Thanos spoke first, voice low, deliberate, carrying the weight of countless worlds. "So, this is the one they call the Emperor." Finally, a mind that rivals the Infinity Stones in ambition, and perhaps in arrogance. The Emperor's response was calm, measured, absolute. "Thanos of Titan, your philosophy is known. Death as balance is a tool. Yet tools wielded without discipline corrupt even the wielder." The space between them crackled with energy. Warp currents twisted around the platform they stood on, distorting light, bending matter, and resonating with their combined presence. Stars above wavered, small planets shuddered in orbit, and the very concept of time felt uncertain, as if seconds could stretch into eons or collapse into instants. Thanos raised his gauntlet, letting the Infinity Stones pulse faintly. "Balance," he said, voice resonant, "requires power, and power requires cooperation. Perhaps our purposes align more than we think." The Emperor's psychic aura flared, subtle but undeniable. Threads of energy probing, testing, measuring. "Cooperation," he replied, deliberate, "does not negate morality. If your methods are incompatible with justice, even the galaxy itself will resist you." The rift pulsed again, a warning and a nudge from the warp. Time, space, and reality wavered, reminding them both that the universe around them was unstable. Their combined presence was dangerous. but the rift had merged them for a purpose beyond mortal or even godly understanding. Thanos studied the Emperor carefully. Every movement, every subtle gesture, every psychic ripple. "I propose an alliance," he said quietly. "Together, we could impose order on chaos itself, reshape galaxies, prune worlds of unnecessary entropy." The Emperor considered him, aura radiating calm authority. Order is not achieved through destruction alone, nor through the whims of a single titan. Yet your strength undeniable, your will formidable. Perhaps there is merit in observation, and in action guided by calculated strategy rather than arbitrary annihilation. A subtle energy pulse radiated from the rift, coiling threads of the warp around both beings, binding them momentarily, forcing recognition of the other's power and intent. It was a silent agreement, a cosmic nudge. Whether friend or foe, they would act together, at least for now. Thanos allowed himself a faint smile, the slightest curl of lips beneath the helm. "Very well. We will test the universe. Together, balance through cooperation, strength through the fusion of wills." The Emperor inclined his head once, threads of psychic energy radiating outward like the calm after a storm. "So be it. Let action be our proof. Let the galaxy witness what gods can achieve together." Above, the rift began to close, threads of warp coiling and dissipating, stabilizing the merged realities for the moment. The stage was set. Two gods, once destined to oppose each other across time and space, were now bound in a tentative alliance, their combined might capable of shaping life, death, and the very fabric of the galaxy. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Worlds would tremble, empires would shatter, and chaos and order would find a new measure of balance. Through the hands of Thanos and the Emperor of mankind, the remnants of the warp rift shimmered behind them, threads of green and violet energy curling and twisting, fading into the void as reality reasserted itself. Thanos stood, his massive frame radiating power, infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly as if aware of the psychic presence beside him. The Emperor of mankind, radiant and absolute, surveyed the Titan calmly, psychic aura coiling and stretching into the cosmos, measuring, calculating, assessing. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The air itself seemed to tremble, as if the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which of the two titanic forces would act first. Thanos' violet eyes glinted beneath his helm, gauging the Emperor's reactions, weighing potential threats, opportunities, and philosophies. The Emperor's gaze was unwavering, threads of psychic energy probing, testing the Titan's intent, its patience, and its will. Thanos finally spoke, voice deep and deliberate. "Your presence is remarkable. I have not sensed such will, such precision, across 1,000 systems. You are formidable." The Emperor inclined his head slightly, voice calm and resonant. "Thanos of Titan, I am aware of your power and your intent. The Infinity Gauntlet is no small instrument. Yet raw power, wielded without discipline, is as dangerous to the wielder as it is to the galaxy." Thanos' lips curled in a faint smile, an acknowledgement of challenge, curiosity, and respect. Discipline is of no use to a galaxy teetering on the edge. Power is the only constant. Yet you, your aura, your presence, you are not mere strength. You impose order. You bend reality without succumbing to it. I respect that. The Emperor's aura flared subtly, a ripple across Cantus 9's fractured planes. Respect is earned, Titan. It is measured not by the destruction one can cause, but by the balance maintained, the lives preserved, and the wisdom to know when restraint is required. Thanos tilted his head, considering the statement. Restraint, an admirable trait. Yet inaction allows entropy to spread, death unchecked, the weak consumed. I seek balance. The universe is not kind to hesitation. A pause stretched between them, heavy with the weight of potential and consequence. The stars above wavered, distorted subtly by the residual warp, as if themselves measuring the potential of this nascent alliance. Thanos stepped forward, gauntlet fingers flexing slightly, energy humming softly in response to his will. You have power. I have purpose. Perhaps we can achieve more together than apart. The Emperor regarded him, eyes narrowing faintly, threads of psychic energy probing deeper, testing both strategy and morality. Perhaps, but cooperation is measured by principle as much as by strength. Do not presume that shared goals erase the need for discernment or that power can substitute for judgment. Thanos nodded slowly, the faintest gesture of acknowledgement. I do not presume, Emperor. I propose only observation, testing. Our combined might could prune chaos, shape destiny, and impose balance across systems. Let the galaxy witness a measure of order it has not known before. The warp pulsed around them subtly, responding to the tone of dialogue, threads of green and violet coiling and unwinding in rhythm with psychic energy. Even the environment seemed to bend in acknowledgement of the two titans, fractured towers tilting, molten rivers shifting slightly, the air itself vibrating with coalesced energy. The Emperor's gaze sharpened, focusing on Thanos' presence. You wield death as a tool. I wield life, order, and humanity's potential. Our philosophies differ, yet the universe may benefit if applied in concert. I will observe you. I will test your methods. And if your actions threaten balance rather than preserve it, we will not hesitate to intervene. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand slightly, a gesture both symbolic and practical. Observation and testing are fair. And if I see opportunity to correct imbalance, I will act. Together, we might impose a scale of balance that neither could achieve alone. A ripple of energy surged through the surrounding world, molten rivers boiling in resonance, shattered spires vibrating subtly with psychic and cosmic power. For the first time, a tacit understanding emerged between the two. Respect tempered caution. Power acknowledged wisdom. Chaos measured against order. Spider-Man and Deadpool's universe-scale counterparts might have been distant in fiction, but here, in the 41st millennium, the alliance of Thanos and the Emperor had begun. Two gods, one philosophical divide, one tentative convergence. The galaxy had yet to understand the consequences of this meeting. Entire star systems hung in precarious balance, as the cosmic pact silently solidified in the ruins of Cantus 9. The rift that had brought them together pulsed one final time before stabilizing, the warp retreating slightly, threads of energy lingering like whispered promise. Thanos and the Emperor regarded one another, not as enemies, but as co-calibrators of universal balance. Each had measured the other's strength, will, and intent. Each had recognized the potential of cooperation tempered by strategy and the inevitability that their combined might could reshape galaxies. Thanos' eyes gleamed beneath his helm. Then we begin. Not as rivals, not as enemies, but as architects of order. The Emperor inclined his head. Let balance guide our actions. Let the galaxy witness what gods can accomplish when aligned, even if briefly, across purpose and power. The stars above shimmered faintly, the galaxy holding its breath, as two of the universe's most formidable beings prepared to embark on a campaign that would challenge reality itself. The void stretched endlessly around them, stars twisting under the subtle pull of the warp. Threads of green and violet energy coiling and uncoiling as if alive. Cantus 9's shattered spires reflected faint pulses of psychic light, casting fractured shadows across molten rivers and fractured metal. Thanos and the Emperor stood apart yet bound by purpose. each measuring the other with calm precision, recognizing the scale of power that could be unleashed if combined. Thanos' voice, deep and deliberate, broke the silence. The universe is fractured. Systems collapse under their own entropy. Civilizations falter. Death spreads unchecked. Balance is not optional, it is absolute. I propose a partnership, a fusion of purpose and power. Together, we can prune disorder, restructure the cosmos according to reason and inevitability. The Emperor's gaze remains steady, aura radiating calm authority. Threads of psychic energy probing, testing the logic behind the Titan's words. Balance, he said, cannot be imposed without judgment. Strength alone does not equal order. Power wielded indiscriminately corrupts as readily as it enforces. Why should I align with a being whose methodology is death incarnate? Thanos stepped closer, the infinity gauntlet glinting faintly, each stone pulsing in recognition of the Emperor's psychic aura. Because your judgment is constrained by humanity, by ethics, by duty. Mine is unbound by such considerations. Together, we impose a measure neither could achieve alone. Where you require reason and foresight, I bring absolute execution. Where I am absolute, you bring perspective and morality. The galaxy requires both. The Emperor inclined his head slightly, threads of energy wrapping around him like a living cloak. You speak of alignment, but our philosophies diverge. You are willing to sacrifice countless lives in the pursuit of balance. I am bound by preservation, by guidance, by the responsibility of dominion. How do you reconcile these differences? Thanos' violet eyes gleamed beneath his helm. By acknowledging that balance may demand sacrifice, but measured, precise, and justified sacrifice. And by understanding that absolute strength alone cannot enforce order. We are two sides of the same scale. Together, we can achieve what neither could accomplish in isolation. The rift behind them pulsed, responding subtly to the tone of their conversation. Warp currents swirled, coiling threads of psychic energy around the shattered spires, amplifying the presence of two cosmic beings in a single nexus of power. Spider-Man and Deadpool would have understood the chaos, the improvisation, the sheer unpredictability of such a confrontation. Here, it was calculated, precise, and deliberate. Every word, every glance, every subtle movement radiated potential. The potential to reshape galaxies. The Emperor's psychic senses extended, probing Thanos' mind, calculating risk, examining intent, discerning hidden variables. Your proposal implies trust, he said. Trust between two beings capable of overwhelming one another instantly. How is this trust established? Thanos' hand flexed, the infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly with cosmic energy. Trust is established through demonstration. Action. Proof of capability and intent. I suggest a test, a joint operation against a chaos-infested system. If you agree, we strike together. We will measure outcomes, observe consequences, and determine the efficacy of our collaboration. If successful, we proceed. If failure occurs, the galaxy endures the consequences, and our understanding of each other is refined. The Emperor's aura pulsed, a subtle flare of psychic light. You propose a strike, a single system to gauge compatibility. Your reasoning is sound, but even a test carries significant risk. Collateral, interference from the warp, unintended consequences. We must mitigate these factors carefully. Thanos' lips curled in a faint smile, an acknowledgement of the subtle challenge. Risk is inherent in all action. Even inaction has cost. We may calibrate, refine, and adapt, but every move reshapes the board. Together, we do not falter, we act decisively, guided by combined will and unparalleled power. The rift shivered again, threads of warp energy coiling around the two titans, binding them momentarily in shared focus. Stars above tilted subtly in perception, space itself bending in recognition of their nascent alliance. Cantus 9's fractured landscape seemed to respond, buildings leaning slightly, molten rivers curving, as if acknowledging the merger of purpose, the fusion of order and absolute execution. The Emperor considered the proposal, psychic aura rippling in calm, measured pulses. You wield death as a tool. I wield preservation and guidance. If our methods are to merge, it must be with careful calibration and deliberate restraint. We act together, not as tyrants, but as arbiters of consequence. Your approach is direct, ruthless. My approach is precise, methodical. We may achieve balance, but only if we remain conscious of the weight of our actions. Thanos' eyes narrowed faintly, the infinity gauntlet pulsing with subtle light. Consciousness and consideration are implicit. We are not mindless executioners. We act with intent, with focus, with the understanding that consequence is unavoidable. Let the galaxy witness what two beings of unmatched power can accomplish when aligned in purpose, when reason and strength converge in execution. A final pulse of the rift surged, warp currents swirling violently, before settling into subtle coils that lingered like whispered promise. Thanos and the Emperor stood in mutual recognition, two titans who had tested their understanding of one another. The first step toward a cosmic alliance had been taken. The stage was set. A single system awaited as the proving ground. The galaxy held its breath, and threads of the warp pulsed in anticipation. Two gods, once potentially opposed, now poised to act together, their combined might threatening to reshape entire star systems, their philosophies aligned through dialogue, calculation, and cosmic respect. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand slightly, symbolic yet practical. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura coiling as acknowledgement. "Let the test begin," he said. "Let action be our measure. Let the universe witness the fusion of our will." The system before them trembled, its planets scarred by millennia of war, moons fractured, orbital platforms shattered, and the faint pulse of warp taint seeping through every corner. Cantus 9, though distant now, had imprinted residual psychic energy across the stars, and the chaos currents clung stubbornly to the fabric of reality. Thanos and the Emperor hovered above the system, each radiating power, a living storm of cosmic and psychic might. The galaxy itself seemed to bend, stars twisting faintly, gravitational fields fluctuating, and time stretching in subtle waves around their presence. Thanos surveyed the system, infinity gauntlet glowing faintly, its stones resonating in recognition of the Emperor's psychic aura. "This is but the first test," he said, voice deep and deliberate. "The chaos forces here are entrenched, but their power is scattered, predictable, and measurable. Together, we will calibrate our combined influence." The Emperor's aura flared softly, threads of psychic light stretching outward, sensing every hidden warp surge, every taint in the system. "You are correct, Titan. We must test synchronization, execution, and precision. The warp will resist, chaos will attempt to corrupt. Our actions must be decisive, controlled, and morally sound, where possible." The first planet, a barren world twisted by the warp, came into focus. Corrupted cities sprawled across molten plains, demon-infested fortresses bristling with energy, and warp-spawned horrors patrolled shattered avenues. Thanos extended his hand, infinity stones glowing faintly. Reality warped subtly around him, gravity bending slightly, space folding to reinforce his will. The Emperor's psychic presence radiated outward, threads of energy intertwining with Thanos' power. Together, their combined influence was overwhelming. A synthesis of raw cosmic execution and disciplined psychic control. Warp taint recoiled, buildings shuddered, and corrupted forces hesitated, their confidence faltering in the presence of two gods working in concert. Thanos struck first, a gesture of power rippling through the planet, toppling demon fortresses, crushing warp-spawned armies under waves of energy. The Infinity Gauntlet glowed, each stone amplifying destructive potential, turning raw intent into tangible, unstoppable force. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic pulses that unmade corrupt energies, shielded innocence, and restored damaged terrain where possible. The two worked as one, destruction and preservation in perfect harmony. Spider-Man would have described the coordination as improbable, while Deadpool would have laughed at the absurdity of synchronized godlike action. Here, the combination was flawless. Two distinct philosophies of power fused into one operational strategy. Demon princes attempted to intervene, their eyes glowing with malevolence, weapons bristling with warp energy. Thanos crushed a demon prince beneath a wave of cosmic force, shattering armor, disintegrating energy conduits, while the Emperor projected psychic tendrils into another, disrupting its essence, cleansing the corruption without annihilation. The warp writhed in reaction, threads of green and violet energy bending, amplifying the champion's power while destabilizing the demonic opposition. Orbital platforms launched volleys of fire, but the Emperor's psychic shields bent the trajectories, while Thanos redirected gravitational fields subtly, sending energy surges back toward enemy fortresses. Every strike, every move, was calculated and enhanced, the fusion of raw power and disciplined judgment rendering conventional defense meaningless. Across the planet, warp-spawned beasts surged from fissures, their forms grotesque, limbs fused, eyes glowing with chaos. Spider-Man might have noted the precision with which Thanos and the Emperor's combined aura-guided strikes, while Deadpool would have described it as a cosmic ballet with slightly more explosions. Thanos crushed entire ranks with a gesture, while the Emperor unmade psychic constructs, neutralized warp currents, and guided energy flows to avoid unnecessary collateral damage. Together, they were unstoppable, yet disciplined, precise, and methodical, a terrifying blend of destruction and restraint. The system's moons shuddered, rivers of warp energy twisting in unnatural currents. Corrupted fortresses collapsed in coordinated waves of energy. Warp-tainted skies cleared partially, revealing stars that seemed to watch in quiet awe. The chaos forces that survived reeled from the synchronized assault, their plans disrupted, their power scattered. Thanos and the Emperor observed silently, gauging efficiency, measuring response, calculating synergy. Every strike, every manipulation, every psychic pulse was part of a deliberate assessment of combined strength. The rift that had brought them together seemed to pulse in acknowledgement, the warp recognizing the emergence of a force beyond conventional comprehension. By the end of the planetary strike, the chaos forces were defeated or scattered, their warp corruption diminished, and the world partially stabilized. Thanos exhaled slowly, turning to the Emperor. Effective. Our powers are complementary. The universe yields when execution and judgment merge. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura pulsing softly. Indeed, but this is only a beginning. Chaos will adapt, and systems beyond this world will require even greater precision. The test is successful, but incomplete. The stars above shimmered faintly, the warp coiling subtly in anticipation, as two titans prepared for the next stage. A universe fractured, yet malleable, awaited the combined might of Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind. The battle-scarred system lay in quiet aftermath, smoldering moons reflecting the faint green and violet glow of residual warp energy. Thanos stood atop a fractured plateau of Cantus 9, infinity gauntlet faintly pulsing, each stone resonating in anticipation. The Emperor of Mankind hovered beside him, radiating calm authority, threads of psychic light stretching outward, probing the surrounding chaos, measuring the consequences of every strike, every act, every decision. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The system itself seemed to hold its breath. Molten rivers still steaming, twisted towers quivering, and the warp thrumming faintly, as if awaiting the verdict of two gods. Finally, the Emperor spoke, voice resonant and absolute, threading through the void and into the Titan's awareness. Thanos, he began, deliberate, precise. Your actions, while effective in execution, have consequences far beyond the immediate target. Lives are lost. Civilizations tremble. You wield death as a tool. Explain the measure by which you determine necessity. Thanos turned slowly, eyes glowing beneath his helmet, weighing the Emperor's words carefully. Balance, he replied, voice low, deliberate. Entropy is the universal constant. Life without constraint leads to chaos, stagnation, and eventual collapse. Sacrifice is unavoidable. I do not revel in death. I implement it as a mechanism to restore equilibrium. Measure is not moral. It is mathematical, inevitable, and impartial. The Emperor's psychic aura flared subtly, threads of energy coiling and recoiling as he probed Thanos' mind. Mathematical balance cannot substitute for moral judgment. Your approach risks annihilating more than it corrects. You presume the right to impose your will upon entire populations, yet morality, duty, and wisdom demand consideration beyond efficiency. Thanos stepped closer, gauntlet glowing faintly, each stone resonating with the Emperor's psychic presence. Morality is subjective. Duty is constrained by circumstance. Wisdom is irrelevant without power to enforce it. The galaxy suffers because no one acts decisively. You, Emperor, preserve, guide, and temper. I execute. Together, we can impose both judgment and execution. The Emperor considered the Titan, threads of psychic energy coiling outward, probing, calculating, measuring intent and consequence. You speak as one who judges the universe by outcome alone. Yet every choice has ripple effects. Destruction breeds chaos if unchecked. Even with intent, collateral damage is inevitable. How do you reconcile necessity with morality? Thanos' gauntlet hand flexed subtly. The equation is simple. Calculate necessity, implement action. Lives are variables, entropy a constant. Sacrifice is inherent in maintaining universal order. Do you hesitate, Emperor, because morality clouds judgment? I do not hesitate. I act where action is required. The Emperor's gaze hardened, psychic aura tightening like a vice. Power without restraint is dangerous. Execution without consideration is tyranny. Even gods must temper will with wisdom. If you act alone, the universe suffers. Thanos inclined his head faintly, acknowledging the truth of restraint, but the intensity in his eyes remained unwavering. I recognize the value of your wisdom. That is why we stand together. Your judgment tempers my execution. Our combined might ensures balance, not blind destruction. A distant planet trembled in the aftermath of their combined strike. Rivers of molten metal shifted, towers cracked and groaned, and residual warp currents twisted unpredictably through the system. The Emperor extended his psychic presence, threads probing the Titan's mind, testing limits. seeking to ensure that intent aligned with outcome. You must understand, Thanos, that every life is a variable with consequences unforeseen. Even the Infinity Stones cannot anticipate all permutations. Wisdom must guide action, or balance becomes tyranny. Thanos considered the Emperor carefully, Infinity Gauntlet pulsing in resonance with psychic threads. I understand, Emperor. I have calculated probabilities, variables, and outcomes across thousands of worlds. Yet morality, duty, and wisdom are abstract concepts. Without decisive action, systems collapse. Without enforcement, balance is theoretical, not practical. The Emperor's aura flared, threads of psychic energy tightening. Then you must learn, Titan. Power alone is insufficient. Morality, restraint, and foresight are as vital as execution. The galaxy can survive only when strength is tempered by wisdom. Your methods must adapt, or even the strongest will falter. Thanos extended a hand slightly, Infinity Gauntlet glowing faintly. Then I will adapt. We will test, measure, and refine. Together, our combined judgment and execution will impose order. The galaxy will endure not through mercy alone, nor through force alone, but through the synthesis of both. The warp pulsed subtly, coiling and twisting in response to their dialogue. Molten rivers shifted slightly, debris trembled, and the faint pulse of energy stretched across the system, acknowledging the tentative synthesis of two cosmic philosophies. The Emperor inclined his head, aura flaring in acknowledgement. Very well, Thanos. We will act, but always with awareness of consequence. Morality tempers action, or even the strongest will be judged by the universe itself. Thanos' violet eyes gleamed beneath his helm, a mixture of respect and anticipation. Agreed. We act with precision, execution, and awareness. The universe will witness the synergy of power and wisdom, and balance will be imposed where previously chaos reigned unchecked. Above them, the stars shimmered faintly, the warp threads quivering in acknowledgement, and Cantus 9 seemed to pause, as if even the planet itself recognized the import of this moment. Two titans, once destined to oppose one another, now in dialogue, in careful negotiation of philosophy, intent, and power. The first seeds of a cosmic alliance had been planted, an understanding that strength without wisdom is hollow, and that judgment without execution is ineffective. The stage was set, the galaxy held its breath, and two of the universe's most formidable beings, the Emperor of Mankind and Thanos of Titan, prepared to act in unison, their philosophies tempered, their combined might a force beyond comprehension. The shattered sky above Cantus 9 pulsed with residual warp energy, green and violet threads coiling around the fractured spires, casting faint, wavering shadows across molten rivers and twisted ruins. Thanos stood tall, gauntlet faintly glowing, each infinity stone resonating with potential and calculation. The Emperor of Mankind hovered beside him, radiant, calm, and absolute, threads of psychic light extending into the void, probing the surrounding warp currents. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, as if acknowledging that a moment of unprecedented consequence was unfolding. For centuries, their paths had been destined to conflict, each imposing will against the other. Yet now, the shared understanding was clear. Together, their combined strength could impose a measure of order unmatched by any force before. Thanos raised a gauntlet hand slightly, allowing the stones to pulse subtly. Our philosophies diverge, Emperor, but our objectives overlap. Chaos spreads unchecked, civilizations falter, entropy consumes. We could act separately, each imposing will and order in our own ways. Or we could merge purpose, strategy, and might, The result would be a scale of balance the universe has never witnessed. The Emperor's gaze was unwavering, aura coiling and expanding like a living tide. Balance is not achieved through mere force, Titan. Judgment must temper execution. Morality must guide action. Without it, even the most effective imposition of power becomes tyranny. Yet, your logic is sound. Our combined influence could prune disorder while preserving what is vital. Thanos inclined his head subtly, a gesture of acknowledgement, and perhaps respect. I agree. Strength untempered is incomplete. Wisdom without action is ineffective. We complement one another. Your insight and foresight, my execution and will. Together, we enforce balance, preserve order, and act decisively where the universe hesitates. The rift behind them pulsed once more, threads of the warp wrapping around the shattered world, reacting subtly to the energy emanating from both titans. Cantus 9 itself seemed to respond, molten rivers shifting, spires stabilizing, the air humming faintly with anticipation. This was not mere cooperation. This was the birth of an alliance capable of reshaping star systems, of imposing balance across galaxies, and of challenging chaos in a way that no force had ever managed. The Emperor extended a hand, psychic threads connecting subtly to Thanos' gauntlet. Let the pact be formalized. Our methods will merge: precision, judgment, calculation, and decisive action. Together, we will act in alignment, each checking the other's excesses, each amplifying the other's strength. The universe shall see order imposed where previously only chaos reigned. Thanos mirrored the gesture, fingers flexing, infinity stones pulsing in recognition. Agreed. Our first joint campaign shall test synchronization and strategy, demonstrating the effectiveness of this alliance. We strike where chaos festers, where systems falter, and we do so as one, a single will operating through two bodies, balancing execution with wisdom, action with morality. The stars above shivered faintly, light bending slightly under the subtle pressure of combined cosmic and psychic energy. The warp itself twisted, threads of green and violet coiling and uncoiling as if acknowledging this alignment. Cantus 9's ruins trembled in silent recognition, molten streams swirling to form temporary channels, spires tilting just enough to create natural vantage points. Thanos spoke again, his voice low and deliberate. Each decision, each strike, must consider consequence. Collateral damage must be measured. Lives lost in service of balance are not meaningless, but they must be purposeful, not arbitrary. The Emperor inclined his head, threads of psychic light pulsing in agreement. Wisdom must govern action. Power without restraint is incomplete. The pact is more than strategy. It is the fusion of ethics, execution, and foresight. The universe may yet benefit from this rare alignment of purpose. A faint tremor coursed through Cantus 9 as residual warp energy pulsed. The planet seemed almost alive, resonating with the combined presence of Thanos and the Emperor. Time itself warped subtly, allowing brief glimpses of potential outcomes, calculations of consequences flowing like rivers of light through the psychic field. Thanos' violet eyes gleamed beneath the helm. Then let it be so. Let this alliance stand as a force unmatched, capable of striking where chaos festers, capable of preserving life while enforcing order, capable of imposing balance where none has existed for eons. The Emperor's aura flared subtly, threads of psychic light radiating across space. Let the pact endure. Let our combined will guide action, but always tempered with wisdom, restraint, and consideration. Our first campaign will demonstrate the alignment of our purpose, and the galaxy will bear witness to the strength of this union. The warp pulsed gently, threads coiling and uncoiling, bending subtly around the alliance as if acknowledging the birth of a new force. Molten rivers shifted slightly, spires stabilized, and debris settled. Thanos and the Emperor stood, measuring one another not as rivals, but as co-architects of cosmic order. Their philosophies intertwined, their power merged for the first time, and Cantus 9, though scarred and broken, hummed faintly in anticipation of what was to come. The galaxy would tremble. Systems would bow to combined might. Chaos would learn to fear the union of execution and judgment. And Thanos and the Emperor of mankind would act as one, enforcers of balance, arbiters of consequence, and architects of a new order. The void beyond Cadia trembled with ominous energy, green and violet threads of the warp stretching unnaturally, weaving through the shattered stars, coiling around the remnants of shattered fleets and desolate moons. From the vantage above the ruined world, Thanos and the Emperor of mankind observed in silent coordination, each radiating presence measured, controlled, yet immense. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, the warp quivering, aware that two of its greatest challengers were preparing to test the borders of imperial space. Thanos raised his gauntlet, infinity stones pulsing faintly. "The chaos forces are concentrated here," he said, voice low, deliberate. "They are powerful but predictable in their entrenchment. Our combined strike can neutralize them efficiently, demonstrating the efficacy of our alignment." The Emperor's psychic aura flared, coiling outward like a living tide. Predictable, yes, but dangerous. Even entrenched chaos forces retain cunning. We act with precision, or the galaxy will bear unnecessary cost. Thanos inclined his head slightly. "Then we strike decisively. Our methods may differ, but our objectives align. Destruction where necessary, balance where possible." The first of the Chaos fleets emerged from the warp, shapes twisted by corruption, armor fused with flesh, and demonic energy pulsing along their hulls. Bolts of raw warp energy lanced across the void, malignant and unpredictable, seeking to disrupt formation and morale. Spider-Man might have analyzed this with meticulous calculation, while Deadpool would have improvised chaotic countermeasures. Here, the two gods themselves were the ultimate combination of logic and execution. Thanos struck first, waves of cosmic energy emanating from the gauntlet, shattering the leading ships, ripping through hulls with the subtle precision of inevitable force. The Infinity Stones pulsed, bending gravitational and temporal fields, turning enemy formations into cascading destruction. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic tendrils that disassembled demonic energies, neutralizing warp-infused weaponry, and fortifying allied craft with subtle psychic reinforcement. A chaos demon prince rose above the battlefield, crowned with writhing tendrils, eyes burning with malevolence. It roared, psychic and physical energy coiling around its massive form. Yet even this entity faltered under the combined influence of Thanos and the Emperor. Thanos' cosmic might crushed nearby warships, sending energy pulses cascading into the creature, while the Emperor's psychic presence pierced the warp, disrupting the Demon Prince's form and severing its connection to the surrounding forces. The warp itself reacted, threads of green and violet coiling around the champions, amplifying each strike, reinforcing precision, and subtly twisting the battlefield to their advantage. Ships that should have coordinated remained disorganized, as enemy captains struggled to anticipate attacks that came with the inevitability of divine force. On Cadia itself, ruined cities quivered under psychic and cosmic waves. Molten rivers shifted, streets bent, and debris settled, all responding to the presence of the two gods above. Imperial forces, though exhausted from prior engagements, observed in awe and terror as the alliance unfolded. The Chaos fleets faltered, unable to cope with the coordinated blend of psychic might and raw cosmic execution. Thanos' violet eyes scanned the battlefield, measuring efficiency, gauging synchronization, and noting points where the Emperor's psychic focus complemented his own destructive force. "Effective," he said. "Our power combines seamlessly. Chaos falters where previously it would have resisted." The Emperor inclined his head, aura pulsing gently. Yet even this system is only a microcosm. Larger campaigns will demand refinement, and judgment must remain aligned with execution. The Chaos demonic energies attempted to reorganize, forming swirling vortices of destructive intent, their warp-twisted forms coalescing into new formations. Thanos extended his gauntlet, subtle pulses of energy bending reality, disassembling the chaotic constructs, and redirecting their forces harmlessly into empty space. The Emperor projected psychic threads, binding warp currents, stabilizing allied forces, and reinforcing the cohesion of their combined strike. Even minor warp-spawned creatures were swept aside. The Hive's shattered landscape absorbed the combined presence, its molten rivers and twisted towers reacting dynamically to aid or obstruct movement. The champions moved like a singular force, execution tempered with judgment, chaos countered by methodical intervention. By the end of their strike, Cadia's chaos forces lay scattered, ships destroyed or fleeing, warp energy dissipated, and the world partially stabilized under the influence of combined divine power. Thanos lowered his gauntlet slightly, surveying the field. "The first test is complete. Our synchronization proves effective. The Imperium and the galaxy has seen the potential of our union." The Emperor radiated calm, psychic aura coiling in gentle acknowledgement. "Indeed. Yet the test is not merely strength. It is judgment, control, and the balance between execution and morality. The galaxy watches. Chaos has faltered today, but larger threats remain. We must proceed with caution, wisdom, and unity." Above Cadia, the stars shimmered faintly, the warp threads coiling and pulsing in recognition, acknowledging the emergence of an unprecedented alliance. Two gods, once separated by philosophy and motive, had acted as one. The galaxy trembled in awe and terror, and the echoes of their combined power rippled across the void. Thanos turned to the Emperor, a faint smile beneath his helm. "Balance is attainable. Our methods differ, yet complement one another perfectly. We shall move forward, system by system, imposing order where chaos persists, and demonstrating the potential of our pact." The Emperor inclined his head, threads of psychic light stabilizing around the system. "The shadow over Cadia is but the beginning. Our alliance will be tested repeatedly, and the galaxy will measure the consequences of our combined will." The stars above Cadia pulsed faintly, the warp coiling subtly, and the system itself seemed to shiver in anticipation. Two of the universe's greatest beings had proven their synchronization, their presence a beacon of power, strategy, and inevitable judgment. Chaos had been challenged and found wanting. The galaxy awaited the next stage. The void above Terra shimmered with a sickly green and violet haze, warp energy coiling like serpents through fractured space. Thanos hovered beside the Emperor of Mankind, their combined aura radiating a force that bent the perception of nearby star systems. Below, key chaos-held war zones trembled, fortresses groaning, warp-spawned horrors cowering, and demon engines thrumming in uneasy resonance. Every world in the system seemed to pause, the cosmos itself holding its breath, as two of the most formidable beings in existence prepared to strike. Thanos' violet eyes scanned the fleets, Infinity Gauntlet pulsing faintly with cosmic awareness. "This is the test of coordination," he said, voice low and deliberate. "The warp is agitated, chaos forces entrenched, but they are finite, and there will bends to those who act decisively." The Emperor's psychic aura flared, threads of light extending outward, probing for warp instabilities, psychic anchors, and vulnerabilities in the enemy lines. Precision, judgment, and restraint guide action. Titan. Our first strike demonstrated synchronization. Now we extend our reach, and the consequences will echo through multiple sectors. Chaos fleets surged forward, demon engines and corrupted ships thrumming with malignant energy. Molten debris, warp-spawned constructs, and psychic distortions filled the battlefield. Thanos struck first, waves of cosmic force radiating from the Infinity Gauntlet, crushing fleets, shattering demon engines, and bending reality subtly to augment his reach. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic tendrils that neutralized warp energy, shielded allied craft, and guided collateral destruction with surgical precision. The First World fell quickly. Demon fortresses collapsed under simultaneous psychic and cosmic assault, demon princes and spawn shredded by the combined might. The warp pulsed and writhed, threads of energy twisting around both champions, amplifying precision and reinforcing destructive potential. Imperial forces and allies observed from orbit in awe, recognizing for the first time the magnitude of what two gods acting together could achieve. On another planet, a chaos-infested hive world, streets twisted, towers collapsed, and warp currents flared unnaturally. Thanos crushed enemy strongholds with targeted strikes, the Infinity Gauntlet bending gravity and energy to fragment defenses. The Emperor's psychic projection followed, binding warp currents, neutralizing demonic entities, and guiding energy flows to preserve strategic structures. Demon legions attempted to resist, bolters and psychic lances firing, demonic energy coiling violently. Spider-Man might have calculated trajectories with precision, Deadpool would have improvised through chaos. Here, their cosmic counterparts executed a perfect synthesis of method and force. Every strike, every psychic surge, every movement reinforced the other, turning the battlefield into a fluid dance of destruction and stabilization. Thanos' actions were decisive, eliminating fortified positions and disrupting enemy coordination. The Emperor focused, threads of psychic light weaving through the warp, neutralizing corruption, shielding populations, and reinforcing the champion's actions. Even warp-spawned beasts faltered, their instincts disrupted by the overwhelming alignment of power and judgment. The combined presence of Thanos and the Emperor reshaped the battlefield. Molten rivers shifted, towers tilted, debris became cover or obstacles, and corrupted forces struggled to anticipate attacks. Every move reflected coordination, every strike reinforced strategy, and the warp itself seemed to acknowledge the synthesis. A massive demon engine lunged toward the Emperor, psychic energy radiating outward to overwhelm defenses. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand, bending space subtly to redirect the attack into a collapsing spire, shattering the construct and neutralizing threat. The Emperor projected psychic energy, stabilizing the spire, guiding energy currents to minimize uncontrolled destruction. Together, the assault was both devastating and controlled, demonstrating the unique balance of force and judgment in their alliance. Corrupted Astartes attempted bolters and energy blades striking in unison. Spider-Man might have evaded with agility, Deadpool might have spun unpredictably. Here, the combination of cosmic execution and psychic precision. rendered conventional tactics meaningless. Every attack was anticipated, every maneuver accounted for, yet still unpredictable due to the subtle interaction with the warp. By the time the final stronghold fell, chaos forces were shattered, scattered, or fleeing, and entire sectors had been purged and stabilized simultaneously. Stars flickered faintly in recognition, and Cantus 9's remnants quivered subtly in the aftershock. Thanos lowered his gauntlet slightly, violet eyes glinting beneath his helm. The coordination is effective. Our combined power neutralizes entrenched chaos. The universe reacts predictably to aligned force. The Emperor's aura pulsed, coiling around both leaders, psychic energy stabilizing. Our methods merge. Destruction and preservation, execution and judgment, operating as one. Yet this is only the beginning. Larger threats await, and the galaxy will test our alliance further. Above, the warp pulsed gently, threads coiling around the two titans, acknowledging the unprecedented alliance, the combination of execution and judgment that had reshaped entire systems. The first coordinated assault had been a triumph, a display of combined might that left fleets in awe, armies demoralized, and chaos itself faltering before two godlike forces. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand slightly toward the Emperor. "Shall we proceed to the next system?" The Emperor inclined his head, threads of psychic energy stabilizing around Cantus 9. Let the galaxy witness what two beings, aligned in purpose and tempered by judgment, can achieve. Chaos will learn, and the Imperium will understand the scope of our alliance. The stars above shimmered faintly, and the galaxy held its breath. As Thanos and the Emperor prepared to strike again, their synchronized might reshaping reality itself, and establishing the first true demonstration of their cosmic pact. The stars themselves seemed to shiver as the warp coiled violently around the system. Threads of green and violet energy tearing across light years, warping space, bending gravitational fields, and threatening the stability of entire star systems. From the void above, Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind observed in silent coordination, their combined presence radiating authority and power, a beacon of calm amidst the chaotic roar of the universe. Thanos' violet eyes scanned the rift, infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly. "This anomaly is not natural," he said, voice low and deliberate. "The warp here is fraying, destabilized, and the currents suggest sentience, or at least an intelligence attempting to propagate." The Emperor's psychic aura flared, threads of light extending outward, probing the ripples, testing for psychic interference, demonic influence, and chaotic resonance. "It is a tear in reality itself," he said. "Left unchecked, it will consume nearby systems, corrupt entire fleets, and destabilize the immaterium. We must act decisively, but with precision and balance. This is the first true test of our alliance." The rift pulsed violently, tendrils of warp energy extending like serpents, seeking to ensnare planets, warp currents bending, and stars dimming under the weight of psychic turbulence. Demonic entities, partially manifested, swirled within the currents, their forms grotesque, limbs stretched unnaturally, eyes burning with malignant intelligence. Thanos extended his gauntlet, waves of cosmic energy emanating outward, bending the rift's edges, destabilizing demonic constructs, and turning the warp currents toward temporary containment. The Emperor followed, projecting threads of psychic energy into the rift, binding unstable currents, reinforcing weakened areas, and neutralizing the malign influence of demonic tendrils. Together, their powers fused, a perfect synthesis of execution and judgment, cosmic might and disciplined psychic control. The warp itself recoiled subtly, threads coiling around the duo in recognition of authority and precision. Spider-Man and Deadpool might have described the coordination as impossible. Here, Thanos' raw, destructive force was tempered by the Emperor's disciplined focus, turning what could have been indiscriminate annihilation into a controlled stabilization of reality itself. Every pulse, every movement, every gesture had meaning, interacting with the warp in ways that preserved what could be saved and neutralized what threatened to unravel existence. A massive demonic entity surged from the rift, crowned in writhing tendrils of energy, eyes blazing with malice. Thanos struck first, crushing surrounding constructs, waves of energy radiating outward to shatter the creature's form. The Infinity Stones pulsed, bending gravitational fields, redirecting the entity's own energy back into the warp, forcing it to recoil. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils, piercing the entity's consciousness, disrupting its connection to the rift, and binding its malignant essence in controlled stasis. The entity writhed violently, threads of warp energy twisting against their combined might. Yet neither Thanos nor the Emperor wavered. They moved as one, each action reinforcing the other, turning destructive potential into stabilization. Nearby star systems shuddered as their combined presence extended outward. Molten planets rippled, asteroid fields shifted, and orbital platforms trembled. Even minor demonic manifestations recoiled, unable to contend with the synchronization of execution and judgment. Thanos manipulated the raw energy of the rift, controlling gravity, space, and matter in delicate bursts, while the Emperor directed psychic currents with meticulous precision, reinforcing areas of stability and neutralizing instability. A wave of corrupted energy surged toward a nearby inhabited planet. Thanos extended the gauntlet, bending the gravitational and temporal fields, pulling the surge back into the rift center, while the Emperor's psychic threads guided the energy flow, dispersing it safely and preventing collateral damage. The fusion of their methods allowed them to act decisively without causing unnecessary destruction, demonstrating the true potential of their combined might. The rift screamed, a soundless roar that echoed across space, threads of warp energy coiling violently in resistance. Thanos struck again, energy pulsating outward, while the Emperor projected psychic energy in perfect counterbalance. Together, they gradually stabilized the warp currents, binding the rift's edges, neutralizing rogue tendrils, and forcing demonic entities into stasis or retreat. The system's planets quivered, molten rivers stabilizing, buildings and surface structures halting their unnatural oscillation. Even the distant stars seemed to pulse in acknowledgement of the alignment, recognizing the emergence of two entities capable of imposing order upon chaos itself. Thanos' voice broke the silence, low and deliberate. The rift is contained. Our synchronization proves effective. The combination of force and precision can control even warp phenomena of this magnitude. The Emperor's aura radiated subtly, threads of psychic light stabilizing the system further. Indeed, yet this is only one anomaly. Larger rifts, more complex warp currents, and demonic incursions await. Our combined methodology is proven, but refinement and constant vigilance will be necessary. The warp coiled softly around the Titans, threads of green and violet energy shimmering. The rift now partially stabilized, its edges bound by a perfect synthesis of execution and judgment. Thanos inclined his head faintly. Our combined might is effective. We will extend this method across other systems, curbing chaos where necessary, and imposing order through calculated, decisive action. The Emperor regarded him, aura calm yet immense. The maw of the warp is contained, but the campaign has only begun. The galaxy will witness the full extent of our alliance, and chaos will tremble in recognition of a force beyond comprehension. Stars shimmered faintly, and Cantus 9's shattered surface reflected faint pulses of warp energy. Two titans, once opposed, now aligned in purpose, had faced the rift together, stabilized a segment of the warp, and proven the efficacy of combined cosmic and psychic might. The stage was set, the universe waited, and the next system threatened by chaos already pulsed in anticipation, as Thanos and the Emperor prepared to extend their influence further. The void beyond the Cadia sector trembled, green and violet threads of warp energy stretching across light years, wrapping planets and moons in subtle, almost imperceptible coils. Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind hovered above a cluster of war-torn worlds, each radiating presence immense, deliberate, and commanding. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, as though even the stars understood the stakes of what was about to unfold. From the void, a new wave of arrivals emerged. Loyalist primarchs, titanic warriors of psychic and physical might, descended with disciplined precision. Their banners snapped in the void, a symphony of defiance and authority against the backdrop of Cantus 9's fractured remnants. Bolters fired in disciplined volleys, plasma lances streaked the void, and the psychic aura of each primarch radiated judgment and expectation. The Imperium itself had sent its most trusted to confront what they perceived as a dangerous, untested alliance. The Emperor extended his psychic presence subtly, threads of energy probing, testing, calculating. "They question our methods," he said, voice measured, almost serene. "Not yet our motives, but the combination of strength and authority. We must demonstrate control, restraint, and the necessity of this alliance." Thanos' violet eyes glinted beneath his helm, infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly, each stone resonating with cosmic awareness. "Then let them test us," he said, deliberate. "We will show that balance, order, and decisive action can coexist." The first primarch charged, psychic and physical might coiling around him. Thanos struck first, sending waves of cosmic energy to deflect the assault, shattering terrain, twisting gravity, and disorienting enemy forces. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic tendrils to neutralize the Primarch's warp aura, redirecting its force and stabilizing the battlefield. Every move demonstrated precision tempered by judgment, a fusion of raw execution and controlled psychic authority. The Primarchs hesitated briefly, observing the coordination. They had faced immense threats before: demonic tides, rival Primarchs, entire fleets, but this, two beings operating in near-perfect synergy, one manipulating reality itself with sheer will, the other bending psychic currents and time with disciplined calculation. They realized quickly conventional tactics would fail. Spider-Man and Deadpool might have noted the elegance of improvisation and calculation, the combination of chaos and precision creating an almost imperceptible rhythm. Here, Thanos and the Emperor moved as one, a fusion of purpose, power, and intent that left even titanic warriors scrambling. The battlefield erupted in controlled chaos. Bolters, plasma, and psychic discharges collided with Thanos' energy waves, bending space and tearing debris into temporary barricades. The Emperor's psychic projections reinforced allied positions, redirected enemy attacks, and neutralized demonic currents. Every strike by a Primarch was countered with subtle, deliberate measures, their combined force turning even overwhelming attacks into opportunities. Thanos crushed enemy fortifications, rivers of molten metal bending to his will, while the Emperor disassembled warp currents threatening collateral worlds. The Primarchs advanced in disciplined formations, yet each movement was anticipated, redirected, or disrupted by the synergy of cosmic execution and psychic mastery. One particularly aggressive Primarch surged toward Thanos, fist ablaze with psychic and physical power, aiming to shatter armor and command. Thanos absorbed the assault, fists crackling, redirecting energy into the surrounding terrain, sending debris and energy arcs in waves that disrupted the rest of the formation. The Emperor projected threads of psychic power, binding the incoming Primarch's energy, stabilizing the battlefield, and guiding Thanos' cosmic strikes with surgical precision. The Primarch recoiled slightly, realizing that brute force alone could not overcome the combined might of two cosmic entities operating in complete synchronization. Other Primarchs attempted coordinated attacks, combining psychic lances, fleet strikes, and warp-enhanced weaponry. Spider-Man might have webbed and calculated trajectories. Deadpool might have improvised unpredictably. Here, the fusion of Thanos' decisive execution and the Emperor's meticulous psychic control neutralized every coordinated assault. Each wave of attack was countered with elegant precision, every strike met with an equally measured response. The warp pulsed in response, threads of green and violet energy coiling, amplifying Thanos' cosmic might and reinforcing the Emperor's psychic authority. The Primarchs faltered, their formations unraveling, unable to reconcile the duality of raw force and controlled judgment. By the end of the engagement, the combined force of Thanos and the Emperor had neutralized or repelled every attack. The Primarchs, titanic warriors in their own right, retreated strategically, recognizing that the alliance was unbreakable by conventional methods. The galaxy itself seemed to breathe, warp currents stabilizing subtly in acknowledgement, the battlefield quiet but pulsing with latent energy. Thanos turned to the Emperor, gauntlet glowing faintly. The Primarchs tested us. Our synchronization is effective. The universe reacts to coordinated force and judgment. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura radiating calm authority. Yes, our alignment is strong, yet the test is ongoing. The galaxy will continue to challenge us. Our methods must remain deliberate, measured, and tempered with consideration for consequence. The rift behind them pulsed faintly, threads of warp energy coiling and uncoiling like the breath of the universe. Two titans, once potentially opposed, had demonstrated that their combined strategy and power could overcome even the finest warriors of the Imperium. The stage was set. Chaos would falter. The galaxy would witness the alignment of cosmic execution and psychic mastery. And Thanos and the Emperor of mankind would act as one, judges, enforcers, and arbiters of a new order. The battlefield sprawled across multiple orbits and shattered moons, residual warp energy twisting in faint green and violet threads, casting unnatural shadows across fractured cities, molten plains, and shattered fortresses. Thanos stood at the edge of a cratered world, infinity gauntlet faintly glowing, each stone pulsing with restrained potential, as if measuring every action before execution. The Emperor of mankind hovered beside him, psychic aura radiating in precise pulses, threads of energy stretching into the warp, assessing, calculating, and adjusting the balance of power across the battlefield. Every strike has consequence, the Emperor said, voice calm yet resonant, threads of psychic light extending toward Thanos. Even the smallest action ripples across systems, affecting lives, populations, and the stability of the warp itself. Power without consideration is reckless. Even the strongest may falter under its weight. Thanos nodded, letting the Infinity Stones hum faintly in acknowledgement. Agreed. Yet balance cannot be achieved through hesitation. The galaxy suffers while one deliberates. Death is a tool, necessary, but precise. We act with foresight and efficiency, removing threats while minimizing chaos beyond what is required. Below them, the remnants of chaos forces struggled to maintain cohesion. Warp currents twisted unnaturally, demon engines pulsed with malignant energy, and corrupted Astartes attempted desperate maneuvers to resist the titanic presences above. Thanos gestured subtly, waves of cosmic energy rippling outward, flattening fortified positions, crushing demon engines, and redirecting volatile warp currents into nullified channels. Each movement was controlled, deliberate, a testament to strategic restraint applied to otherwise absolute power. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic tendrils with surgical precision. Demon constructs were immobilized, warp taint neutralized, and allied Imperial fleets stabilized and reinforced. Even minor disturbances in the warp were corrected before spreading uncontrollably. Where Thanos executed, the Emperor refined. Where Thanos struck decisively, the Emperor ensured restraint. A massive demon prince surged from the remnants of a shattered fortress, tendrils of warp energy lashing outward, eyes burning with malignant intent. Thanos moved with controlled force, channeling energy to neutralize the creature without unnecessary destruction. The Infinity Stones pulsed subtly, bending reality to contain the threat. The Emperor extended psychic threads, piercing the warp currents animating the prince, suppressing uncontrolled corruption, and stabilizing the battlefield to prevent cascading destruction. Even minor warp-spawned entities recoiled under the measured combination, unable to overcome the synergy of decisive execution and controlled psychic influence. Thanos adjusted stance, energy rippling outward in calculated arcs, removing clusters of enemies while preserving vital infrastructure. The Emperor mirrored his precision, threads of psychic energy adjusting, reinforcing, and correcting the flow of both warp currents and material structures. Orbital platforms fired volleys, bolters and plasma cannons launching with disciplined precision. Thanos deflected energy subtly, redirecting attacks into neutralized zones, maintaining maximum efficiency while preventing unnecessary casualties. The Emperor stabilized psychic currents, neutralizing demonic interference, and protecting civilians trapped amidst destruction. Together, their presence balanced death and preservation, destruction and stabilization, chaos and order. In a distant city, molten rivers shifted as if aware of the combined will. Collapsed towers trembled subtly, allowing Thanos to redirect energy surges without risking structural collapse. The Emperor's psychic presence threaded through the warp, correcting minor instabilities and enhancing Thanos' precision. Every strike, every action, every pulse of energy had purpose, the culmination of centuries of experience, strategy, and power refined by restraint. The Chaos Forces attempted to reorganize, assembling demonic constructs and corrupted fleets into coordinated strikes. Thanos and the Emperor moved as one, executing coordinated maneuvers that neutralized threats before they could coalesce. Warp currents bent subtly to their will, amplifying strikes while limiting unnecessary destruction. Even the most disciplined demon forces faltered, unable to contend with the synthesis of raw cosmic might and psychic judgment. The battlefield reflected the combined balance. Rivers of molten metal stabilized, warp currents neutralized, allied forces reinforced, and civilian areas spared from catastrophic damage. Thanos moved with purpose, every blow calculated, Infinity Stones pulsing only to remove threats, not to destroy indiscriminately. The Emperor's psychic presence ensured that moral and strategic judgment tempered each action. By the end of the engagement, Chaos forces were scattered, demonic energies suppressed, and entire systems partially stabilized under the combined guidance of Thanos and the Emperor. The galaxy had witnessed an unprecedented demonstration. Absolute power applied with discernment, destruction measured by consequence, and the universe balanced temporarily between order and chaos. Thanos lowered his gauntlet slightly, eyes meeting the Emperor's psychic gaze. Balance is attainable. Execution and judgment, combined, produce results beyond expectation. Chaos falters when guided by precision. The Emperor inclined his head, threads of psychic light coiling in quiet acknowledgement. Yes. But the galaxy is vast, and further challenges await. Our methods are effective, yet the test of balance continues. We must remain vigilant, deliberate, and unwavering in our application of power. The warp pulsed softly across the sector, threads of green and violet energy coiling, acknowledging the synergy, precision, and restraint of two cosmic titans. Cantus 9's fractured surface seemed to shiver subtly, molten streams stabilizing, spires aligning imperceptibly, as if recognizing the fusion of judgment and execution. Thanos spoke finally, voice calm but deliberate. "Then we proceed, Emperor. Together, we impose balance. Together, we calibrate death with purpose. Together, we shape the galaxy." The Emperor's aura flared gently, threads extending outward. Yes. The galaxy watches. Chaos trembles. And the balance of death is guided by reason and will. The planet Varkos Prime lay beneath a fractured sky, clouds torn and glowing with faint green and violet threads of warp energy, winds carrying ash, molten particles, and the faint smell of ozone across shattered continents. From orbit, Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind observed in unbroken synchronization, their presence radiating an authority so vast it bent the perception of the very stars. The Imperium's forces, scattered across orbiting platforms, watched in awe and terror, sensing the raw magnitude of the cosmic and psychic might poised to strike. Thanos' violet eyes gleamed beneath his helm, infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly, each stone resonating with anticipation. "This system is unstable," he said, voice low, deliberate. "The chaos influence has corrupted core planetary systems, warp currents are flaring uncontrollably, and the population is at risk of annihilation or enslavement. We act to stabilize, purge, and rebuild." The Emperor's psychic aura flared, threads of light stretching across space and into the warp. "Balance must be maintained," he said. "Death alone does not preserve order. We strike decisively, yes, but with judgment, curbing chaos while preserving potential for renewal." The first strike began as a controlled wave of energy from Thanos, hammering fortified chaos positions, shattering warp-spawned fortresses, and destabilizing demonic anchors that tethered corrupted cities to the warp. Each motion was precise, calibrated, the Infinity Stones amplifying targeted strikes, disassembling structures only where necessary, and neutralizing energy currents that threatened nearby systems. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic threads that stabilized the planet's crust, redirected molten rivers, and reinforced surviving infrastructure. Demon engines faltered, warp-spawned legions were immobilized, and psychic corruption was neutralized wherever threads of energy intersected with Thanos strikes. The combination of raw execution and disciplined judgment turned the battlefield into a tableau of devastating precision. Molten plains shifted subtly under their combined presence. Cities fractured, yet survived. Rivers of lava were redirected to remove corrupted elements, and warp taint that would have spread unchecked was neutralized. Even minor warp-spawned creatures hesitated, unable to resist the fusion of cosmic might and psychic control. Thanos moved with controlled devastation, striking only what was necessary to collapse the chaos strongholds, while the Emperor's psychic aura threaded through every system, ensuring order where it could be maintained. From orbit, fleets observed the display with reverent awe. Bolters, plasma cannons, and artillery systems fired in unison, yet each volley was subtly redirected, neutralized, or enhanced by the combined will of the two titans. Thanos' force crushed fortified positions, the Emperor's psychic projection stabilized energy fields and controlled collateral destruction, turning potential chaos into coordinated efficiency. A massive demon prince surged from the heart of a corrupted citadel, its form grotesque, limbs fused with ceramite and flesh, eyes blazing with malicious intent. Thanos struck, the infinity gauntlet pulsing, redirecting gravitational and energy currents to disassemble its form without unnecessary annihilation. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils into the warp currents animating the demon, severing its connection to the planet and neutralizing residual corruption. Together, their combined strike balanced execution with restraint, turning destructive power into precise surgical elimination. Across the surface, cities and fortresses were purged and rebuilt simultaneously. Molten rivers were redirected into controlled channels, fortifications stabilized where strategic and warp-tainted zones neutralized. The planet itself seemed to respond, shifting, tilting, and reshaping subtly to accommodate the actions of two beings whose combined power transcended conventional laws. Thanos measured each strike carefully, each blast aimed with precision, energy pulses calculated to collapse structures selectively, and enemies neutralized without excessive collateral damage. The Emperor's psychic presence synchronized perfectly, adjusting energy flows, neutralizing residual warp currents, and stabilizing the planet's crust and atmosphere in real time. Demon engines fell, corrupted fleets disintegrated, and warp taint that had spread unchecked for centuries was now neutralized or contained. The combined method of purging and rebuilding was terrifyingly efficient, a synthesis of raw power and disciplined judgment that left chaos forces scattered, disoriented, and incapable of recovery. By the end of the operation, Varkos Prime had been purged of corruption, demonic influence neutralized, and the planet partially restored. Molten rivers flowed safely, cities remained standing though scarred, and warp currents stabilized across the system. Thanos lowered his gauntlet slightly, surveying the field. Our coordination proves effective. We have neutralized chaos while maintaining the integrity of the system. Balance can be enforced when execution and judgment act in concert. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura pulsing in subtle acknowledgement. Our methods merge. The galaxy will remember this system as the first demonstration of what precision, combined with decisive execution, can achieve. Yet this is but one world. The campaign is far from complete. Above, stars shimmered faintly, the warp threads coiling softly in recognition. Two beings, once potentially opposed, had imposed order and judgment across a corrupted world, their combined might establishing a method of efficiency and restraint that the galaxy had never witnessed. Thanos' eyes gleamed beneath the helm. Balance is attainable. Execution guided by judgment produces results beyond expectation. The universe reacts predictably to synchronized purpose. The Emperor's aura radiated subtly. Let us proceed. Other systems await, and the galaxy will witness the continued impact of our alliance. The stars of the outer sector shimmered faintly, green and violet threads of warp energy coiling between systems, stretching like invisible chains linking worlds under unseen influence. Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind hovered above a cluster of corrupted star systems, each radiating authority, precision, and unyielding power. Cantus 9 had long since been left behind, yet its scars still pulsed faintly, a reminder of the first steps in their alliance. The galaxy itself seemed to bend subtly under their presence, matter and energy twisting in response to cosmic will, as if acknowledging that two titans now directed its fate. Thanos' violet eyes glimmered beneath his helm. The systems are scattered, each facing entropy in its own way. Yet chaos permeates all. Our influence must extend, coordinating strikes, stabilizing populations, and bending forces to restore balance. The Emperor's aura flared softly, threads of psychic energy extending outward, probing the warp currents, analyzing planetary alignments, and calculating how best to combine execution and judgment. "Precision and discretion are required," he said. "Every action ripples across multiple systems. Destruction must be targeted, preservation prioritized where possible." The first world in the chain, a hive planet riddled with corruption, quivered under their psychic and cosmic presence. Demon engines patrolled shattered streets, demon princes surveyed twisted fortresses, and warp currents coiled unpredictably through the cities. Thanos struck decisively, energy waves emanating from the gauntlet, flattening corrupted fortifications, crushing demon engines, and redirecting warp currents into containment zones. The Infinity Stones pulsed subtly, manipulating space, gravity, and energy to maximize effect while minimizing unnecessary destruction. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils simultaneously, neutralizing demonic influence, stabilizing energy flows, and reinforcing strategic structures. Warp-tainted rivers and molten plains shifted in response, channels forming to guide energy harmlessly, as if the planet itself recognized the combined influence of cosmic execution and disciplined judgment. Across the sector, fleets responded in awe. Imperial and Allied forces observed from orbiting platforms, unable to fully comprehend the magnitude of the alliance. Corrupted warships and demon vessels faltered under synchronized strikes, their formations disrupted by energy pulses that bent reality subtly. Even the warp itself seemed to hesitate, threads of green and violet energy coiling around the duo, amplifying precision, suppressing chaos, and stabilizing the system. Thanos moved with calculated force, each strike precisely targeting the most dangerous threats, while the Emperor's psychic energy adjusted dynamically, protecting key planetary structures and neutralizing collateral warp influence. The fusion of raw execution and disciplined judgment transformed a chaotic battlefield into a controlled vector of balance. The second world in the chain was an industrial hive world, its factories twisted by centuries of corruption. Demon-infested constructs and warp-tainted rivers surged unpredictably, yet the Titan's presence stabilized the system subtly. Thanos crushed fortified positions with decisive energy pulses, while the Emperor guided psychic threads to prevent widespread structural collapse, preserving as much life and infrastructure as possible. Warp currents bent to their will, amplifying action where needed, redirecting destruction where required. Demon legions attempted coordinated counterattacks, yet the duo's synchronization rendered them ineffective. Every strike of Thanos' gauntlet complemented by the Emperor's psychic intervention, every adjustment calculated in real time, transforming potential chaos into controlled, strategic advantage. On a third planet, political structures and minor Imperium factions awaited coordination. Thanos' presence imposed fear, authority, and respect, while the Emperor's aura guided diplomacy, communication, and strategy. The combined influence realigned systems, coercing factions toward cooperation, subtly reshaping political allegiances while neutralizing chaos influence. The warp itself coiled, threads wrapping across the sector, responding differently to execution and judgment, amplifying effectiveness while suppressing unintended disturbances. The stars above twisted subtly as fleets, populations, and energy fields aligned with the duo's coordinated actions. Even planets not directly affected by battle felt the subtle weight of their presence, gravity, magnetic fields, and psychic energy adjusting imperceptibly to accommodate the Titan's influence. By the end of their campaign across multiple systems, chaos had been neutralized or scattered, minor Imperium factions had been aligned, and the galaxy had begun to perceive the emergence of a new, terrifyingly efficient order. Thanos and the Emperor exchanged a glance, violet and psychic energy pulsing in acknowledgement. "Our methods complement perfectly," Thanos said. "The chain of worlds demonstrates the potential of combined purpose and strength." The Emperor inclined his head, aura flaring subtly. "This execution guided by judgment, power tempered with foresight, and strategy combined with precise intervention. This is the methodology that will reshape sectors and eventually the galaxy itself." The warp threads coiled gently across the sector, stars above shimmering faintly, and Cantus 9's fractured surface seemed to pulse in recognition. Two titans, once opposed by philosophy and motive, now acted in unison, their influence bending reality, war, and politics across multiple systems. Chaos had faltered. The galaxy had witnessed the first true demonstration of synchronized cosmic and psychic might. Thanos' violet eyes gleamed beneath the helm. "Balance is achieved where execution and judgment operate as one. Our methods are effective, and the galaxy responds accordingly." The Emperor's aura radiated calm approval. "Yes, but the chain is long, and challenges will escalate. Our alliance must remain vigilant, precise, and unwavering as we extend influence across the stars." Above the sector, stars flickered faintly, the warp coiling in subtle acknowledgement, and the galaxy awaited the next stage, as Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind continued to extend their chain of influence, shaping reality, war, and politics in a manner no force could oppose. The Eye of Terror pulsed violently, green and violet threads of warp energy twisting like serpents across the void, casting an eerie glow over shattered moons, fractured stars, and derelict warships. Chaos itself stirred, aware of a presence far beyond its comprehension, a force that threatened to destabilize even its deepest dominions. From orbit above the sector, Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind hovered in silent coordination, their combined aura radiating authority, power, and inevitability. The very fabric of reality seemed to shiver under their gaze, as though acknowledging the emergence of a power capable of challenging gods. Thanos' violet eyes scanned the region, infinity gauntlet pulsing faintly, stones resonating in subtle recognition of the warp's agitation. "The Chaos Gods sense us," he said, voice low and deliberate. "They are aware of our alignment, and their dominion is threatened. The Eye will react violently. We must strike precisely, neutralize, and impose balance before they can adapt." The Emperor's psychic aura flared in measured pulses, threads of light extending into the warp, probing currents, and testing the influence of demonic entities. "Yes," he said, voice calm, resonant, absolute. "They perceive our combined might, and they tremble. Yet the warp is cunning and adaptive. Every strike must be deliberate, every intervention measured. We act not as destroyers alone, but as enforcers of order, arbiters of consequence, capable of redirecting the chaos of the immaterium itself." The first manifestations of resistance emerged. Demonic fleets twisted unnaturally, hulls fused with flesh and warp taint, engines thrumming with unholy energy, psychic auras bristling with malevolence. The Chaos Gods themselves projected subtle tendrils, threads of corruption, illusion, and temptation reaching across the void, seeking to destabilize Thanos and the Emperor. Thanos acted first, gauntlet hand extending as waves of cosmic energy pulsed outward, disrupting demonic formations, shattering warp-spawned vessels, and redirecting tendrils of corrupt energy into null zones. The Infinity Stones hummed faintly, subtly bending gravitational fields, space, and time to optimize efficiency while minimizing unnecessary collateral destruction. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic threads with surgical precision, neutralizing warp currents, shielding allied forces, and stabilizing nearby systems threatened by the chaos of the Eye itself. Together, their powers intertwined, a synthesis of raw execution and disciplined psychic control, forcing the Chaos Gods to react defensively, their usual dominion fractured under the combined presence of two cosmic titans. A demon prince erupted from the warped energy, crowned with writhing tendrils, eyes blazing with malice. Thanos' strikes shattered its constructs, waves of energy bending reality subtly to crush its form without unnecessary collateral destruction. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils into the warp, disrupting the creature's link to the Chaos Gods, neutralizing residual energy that might have reinforced enemy forces. Even minor warp-spawned creatures recoiled, unable to contend with the fusion of decisive execution and measured psychic control. Across the eye, warp currents writhed unpredictably. Stars twisted, molten planets shuddered, and shattered moons oscillated slightly, responding to the combined influence of Thanos' cosmic authority and the Emperor's disciplined psychic presence. Every strike, every intervention, every adjustment reinforced the other, transforming a potential catastrophe into a controlled display of unparalleled power. Orbital fleets attempted to intercept the advancing forces. Demon ships unleashed fire, warp lances arced, and psychic distortions spread, yet every offensive was countered with subtle coordination. Thanos redirected energy flows, bending reality to ensure destruction fell precisely where needed, while the Emperor stabilized critical systems, neutralized psychic threats, and protected structures of strategic importance. The warp pulsed in recognition, threads coiling around the champions, amplifying precision while suppressing uncontrolled chaos. Chaos priests and demon engines attempted to rally, but the synergy of execution and judgment proved overwhelming. Every attack anticipated, every wave of energy countered, leaving enemy forces scattered, demoralized, and ineffective. Even the Chaos Gods recoiled subtly, sensing the growing potential of a combined force capable of reshaping the immaterium itself. The first stronghold within the Eye of Terror collapsed, its towers shattered, warp currents neutralized, demonic entities dispersed. Thanos' gaze swept over the battlefield, calculating next steps, each pulse of the Infinity Stones synchronized with the Emperor's psychic adjustments. "Their reaction is predictable," he said. "Our combined might leaves little room for chaos to recover. The Eye itself bends to our alignment of execution and judgment." The Emperor inclined his head, aura flaring gently. Yet this is only one sector. The Eye will adapt, the warp will attempt to resist. Our influence must remain measured, deliberate, and consistent. We strike decisively, but always with awareness of consequence. Above the Eye, stars shimmered faintly, warp threads coiling and pulsing as if alive, reflecting the presence of the two titans. Cantus Nine's remnants in distant space trembled subtly, a faint echo of the combined power now projecting across the galaxy. Thanos turned to the Emperor, a faint acknowledgement in his eyes. The Chaos Gods recognize our presence. They tremble. Their dominion falters. We shall continue to impose balance, system by system, sector by sector. The Emperor's aura radiated calm certainty. The Eye of Terror itself has been tested and found vulnerable. Our alliance will be challenged repeatedly, but the galaxy has now seen what measured execution and psychic mastery can achieve together. Chaos will respond, but we are prepared. The warp pulsed softly, threads of energy coiling across the sector, acknowledging the emergence of an unprecedented force. Two gods, once opposed by philosophy and destiny, had imposed their presence on the dominion of chaos itself. The Eye trembled, and the galaxy awaited the next phase of their campaign. The Eye of Terror writhed like a living thing, threads of green and violet warp energy coiling across the void, casting jagged shadows over shattered moons, shattered fleets, and twisted planets. Demons of every form, warped, grotesque, and titanic, emerged from the rift, their limbs fused with ceramite, flesh, and eldritch energy, eyes glowing with malevolence, and psychic presence radiating pure malice. Even minor warp-spawned horrors quivered in anticipation, sensing that the combined might of two cosmic titans was now fully focused on their domain. Thanos hovered above the largest concentration of warp energy, Infinity Gauntlet pulsing faintly, each stone vibrating in resonance with the Emperor's psychic aura. "Chaos has gathered its full strength," he said, voice low and deliberate. "Their presumption is bold. Yet coordination, precision, and combined will overcome their arrogance." The Emperor's aura flared, threads of psychic energy extending outward, piercing the warp currents, probing demonic minds, neutralizing energy flows, and stabilizing corrupted space. "Yes," he said, measured, absolute. "They believe themselves invincible, but even gods can be tested. Our unity and purpose will demonstrate that coordinated power is superior to blind chaos." The first demonic wave surged, tendrils of warp energy twisting violently, demons' claws tearing at the fabric of space itself. Thanos struck first, a wave of cosmic force emanating from the Infinity Gauntlet, crushing demonic constructs, shattering warp-infused ships, and redirecting volatile energy into nullified zones. The Infinity Stones pulsed with subtle intelligence, coordinating strikes and amplifying precision while limiting collateral destruction. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic threads that bound demonic tendrils, neutralized psychic surges, and stabilized corrupted planetary structures. The warp itself reacted, threads coiling around the duo, amplifying calculated precision while suppressing uncontrolled chaos. Even the most powerful demonic entities faltered, unable to counter the fusion of execution and judgment. A demon prince erupted from the central rift, eyes blazing with psychic fire, tendrils writhing across space in a deliberate, coordinated assault. Thanos struck decisively, bending gravitational fields, shattering constructs, and channeling energy with surgical efficiency. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils, piercing the warp currents that animated the prince, neutralizing its link to the chaotic energies of the Eye. Together, their combined might overwhelmed even this apex of chaos, demonstrating the terrifying efficacy of their union. Minor warp-spawned entities attempted to converge, yet every approach was anticipated and countered. Thanos crushed fortified clusters, energy pulses bending matter to remove threats, while the Emperor stabilized psychic turbulence, guiding energy currents with flawless precision. The battlefield became a controlled tempest, destruction paired with preservation, chaos met with measured and overwhelming force. Orbital demonic fleets launched volleys of warp-infused fire. Thanos subtly redirected attacks with the Infinity Gauntlet, bending trajectories, redirecting energy, and collapsing structures only where necessary. The Emperor projected psychic shields, absorbing demonic attacks, neutralizing warp currents, and reinforcing allied forces in orbit and on planetary surfaces. Every strike, every motion, every pulse of energy was perfectly synchronized, demonstrating the fusion of raw power and disciplined judgment. Even the largest demon engines faltered, their systems destabilized by overlapping cosmic and psychic influence. Thanos' strikes dismantled constructs with precision, while the Emperor's psychic threads guided energy flows, ensuring balance between destruction and preservation. The warp pulsed in acknowledgement, threads coiling to amplify the champion's combined might while suppressing uncontrolled chaos. Across multiple worlds within the sector, chaotic influence receded. Corrupted planets, torn moons, and devastated systems began stabilizing under the reach of their unified power. Demons were scattered, warp currents neutralized, and the Eye itself quivered, threads of energy recoiling subtly. The galaxy watched silently, aware that two gods had imposed their will across domains even chaos itself had believed inviolable. Thanos turned to the Emperor, violet eyes glinting beneath the helm. Our coordination demonstrates the potential of our alliance. Chaos falters where combined execution and judgment converge. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura pulsing in calm acknowledgement. Yet this is only a single engagement. Other domains, other rifts, will challenge our methods further. Our combined force is effective, but continuous vigilance, strategy, and alignment of will are required. The warp threads pulsed gently across the sector, coiling and uncoiling in recognition of the champion synergy. Molten planets, shattered moons, and derelict fleets trembled faintly, bearing witness to the terrifying efficiency of their combined might. Two beings, once opposed by philosophy and destiny, had faced the full brunt of chaos itself, neutralized demonic entities, and stabilized portions of the immaterium that had been corrupted for millennia. Thanos' gauntlet pulsed faintly. Balance is attainable. Execution tempered with judgment produces results beyond expectation. The galaxy must witness this union. The Emperor's aura radiated calm certainty. Chaos may adapt, the warp may resist, but our presence will shape reality, and every act will enforce balance where previously only disorder reigned. Above the Eye of Terror, stars shimmered faintly, warp threads coiling and pulsing in acknowledgement. Two titans, bound by mutual purpose, had confronted the gods of chaos themselves, demonstrated unmatched combined might, and left a sector trembling with the potential of imposed order. The stars above the war-torn sector shimmered with unnatural light, green and violet threads of warp energy coiling and stretching across the void, casting fractured shadows over ruined moons, shattered planets, and orbiting fleets. Thanos hovered above the largest battle zone, Infinity Gauntlet faintly glowing, each stone pulsing in resonance with the Emperor's psychic aura. The Emperor of Mankind floated beside him, radiant, composed, and absolute, threads of psychic energy extending across the sector, probing, measuring, and preparing to coordinate what would become a synchronized display of unparalleled force. The battlefield itself seemed alive, the very fabric of reality reacting to the presence of two titans, warping subtly under the combined weight of raw execution and disciplined psychic authority. Below, corrupted worlds quivered, demon engines throbbed with malignant energy, and warp-spawned horrors swirled in anticipation of the coming strike. The galaxy itself held its breath, as two of the universe's most formidable beings prepared to act in perfect alignment. Thanos spoke first, voice deliberate and resonant. The systems are numerous, chaos forces entrenched, but their patterns are predictable. We act simultaneously across multiple worlds, our combined influence shaping battle, matter, and energy. Execution and judgment must be perfectly calibrated. The Emperor's psychic aura flared in subtle acknowledgement, threads coiling in anticipation. Yes, Titan. Precision is paramount. Our power is unmatched, yet coordination is required. We strike decisively, neutralize corruption, and simultaneously restore order where possible. This is the calculus of war, destruction and preservation in perfect harmony. Across the sector, demonic fleets and corrupted planetary fortresses braced for the assault. Warp currents twisted violently, malignant energy coiling in anticipation of conflict. Thanos struck first on the planet nearest their position, waves of cosmic energy radiating outward, crushing demonic constructs, shattering fortresses, and redirecting warp currents into nullified channels. Every strike was calculated, precise, and deliberate, ensuring maximum effectiveness while minimizing unnecessary collateral damage. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic threads, binding chaotic energy, neutralizing demonic influence, and stabilizing nearby planetary structures. The combined effect was immediate. Demonic legions faltered, demon engines convulsed, and the warp recoiled, threads of energy coiling around the champions, amplifying precision while suppressing uncontrolled chaos. On a secondary world, molten rivers twisted unnaturally, as if acknowledging the coordinated control exerted from above. Thanos adjusted gravitational fields subtly, sending streams of energy to collapse enemy fortifications selectively. The Emperor guided psychic currents into the warp taint, neutralizing its spread, stabilizing the environment, and protecting infrastructure that could be salvaged. Demons attempting to flee or regroup were intercepted, their forms shredded by the fusion of execution and psychic authority. Orbital fleets attempted to resist, bolters and plasma fire streaking through the void, yet every attack was neutralized or redirected by subtle cosmic manipulations. Thanos' gauntlet bent reality, redirecting fire and disassembling energy constructs, while the Emperor's psychic threads stabilized allied craft, shielded vulnerable points, and reinforced planetary defense grids. Every strike by the enemy was anticipated, every movement countered, as if the universe itself recognized the combined power above. A massive demon prince surged from the heart of the warp, tendrils writhing, eyes ablaze with malevolence. Thanos struck decisively, waves of energy collapsing corrupted structures, while the Emperor projected psychic tendrils into the entity, neutralizing its warp connection and immobilizing its influence. Together, their combined action balanced devastation with precision, destruction applied only where necessary, and preservation enforced where possible. Minor warp-spawned entities attempted to converge, but their coordination faltered against the fusion of raw might and disciplined psychic control. The battlefield itself adjusted subtly, twisting streets, molten rivers, and shattered landscapes to reinforce the tactical advantage of the two titans. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand toward a collapsing demon fleet, gravity bending subtly, energy flowing like controlled rivers, toppling ships while sparing nearby civilian sectors. The Emperor mirrored the action, threads of psychic energy stabilizing planetary crusts, redirecting warp currents, and neutralizing demonic energies. The combined influence extended across multiple worlds simultaneously, planets burning and rebuilding in perfect balance, demonstrating a terrifying efficiency born of perfect synchronization. Across the sector, Imperial forces and neutral populations observed, awed by the seamless fusion of raw execution and moral judgment. Where Thanos struck with decisive might, the Emperor ensured the consequences were contained, creating a methodology that combined fearsome power with disciplined restraint. The warp pulsed violently, threads coiling and uncoiling, acknowledging the fusion of titanic forces. Chaos forces were overwhelmed, scattered, or neutralized, unable to predict or resist the efficiency of the combined onslaught. Demon engines convulsed, fortresses shattered, and even minor warp-spawned horrors could not oppose the synchronized strikes. Thanos surveyed the battlefield, violet eyes glowing beneath his helm. Our synchronization is complete. Execution and judgment act in perfect concert. The universe responds predictably when combined purpose is applied. The Emperor inclined his head, aura flaring in subtle approval. The calculus of war demonstrates the efficacy of our alliance. Power applied with precision and guided by foresight can reshape systems, stabilize worlds, and neutralize chaos itself. The stars above shimmered faintly, warp threads coiling around the sector, and Cantus Nine's shattered remnants quivered subtly in resonance. Two titans, once potentially opposed, had imposed their combined will across multiple systems, demonstrating the terrifying efficiency of synchronized cosmic execution and disciplined psychic control. The galaxy held its breath, the eye of terror quivered, and chaos forces recoiled, recognizing a new force of unparalleled magnitude. Thanos turned to the Emperor. Balance is attainable. Execution coupled with judgment produces results beyond expectation. Systems respond as intended. The Emperor's aura radiated calm certainty. Yet the galaxy remains vast. The next phase will test both coordination and adaptability. Our alliance is effective, but vigilance must continue. The warp pulsed gently across the sector, threads coiling and shifting, acknowledging the presence of two titans acting in perfect harmony. Worlds burned, yet were stabilized. Chaos faltered, yet endured. And the galaxy now understood the terrifying potential of Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind acting in unison, their power measured, precise, and unstoppable. The galaxy held its breath as Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind extended their will across multiple systems, threads of green and violet warp energy coiling between planets, stretching over shattered moons and fractured orbital platforms. The combined aura of cosmic execution and disciplined psychic authority radiated outward, imposing order, reshaping conflict, and recalibrating reality itself. Yet the cost of such unparalleled intervention was not invisible, and the mortals of the affected systems felt it immediately. On the first planet, a hive world scarred by centuries of war, civilians awoke to tremors, towers bending slightly as psychic and cosmic energies passed overhead. Rivers of molten metal shifted imperceptibly, streets cracked under unseen forces, and warp taint receded unevenly. While many survived, some populations could not adapt to the sudden recalibration of energy, their settlements collapsing, infrastructures destabilized, and countless lives extinguished, not from malice, but as an unavoidable consequence of balancing forces beyond mortal comprehension. Thanos observed the unfolding consequences with deliberate patience. Mortals suffer because the universe demands equilibrium. Every action carries a cost, and the balance we impose cannot accommodate every life without sacrifice. Yet inaction is a greater failure. Entropy will consume them all if left unchecked. The Emperor's psychic aura flared subtly, threads extending to stabilize regions where possible, yet not all loss could be prevented. Indeed, balance is achieved only through understanding and precision. Mortals, civilizations, and minor species are variables in a cosmic equation, their fate entwined with forces far beyond their comprehension. We act with judgment, yet even judgment cannot eliminate every cost. On a distant industrial world, warp currents destabilized factories, demon engines twitched unpredictably, and corrupted fleets surged from hidden orbital stations. The Emperor projected psychic threads, neutralizing some energy flows, reinforcing structural integrity where possible, and protecting critical populations. Thanos struck decisively, targeting warp-tainted nodes, disassembling corrupted machinery and demonic anchors with calculated precision. The combined force was flawless in execution, yet entire settlements were lost, their destruction unavoidable in the calculus of maintaining sector-wide balance. Warp-spawned horrors attempted to flee, but the champions anticipated their movements, directing energy flows to neutralize threats efficiently. Every strike was purposeful, every psychic pulse measured. Even so, the collateral impact on life and culture was severe. Entire cities were destabilized, minor civilizations erased, and warp-taint scars remained imprinted across planetary crusts, a testament to the price of godlike intervention. In orbit above a shattered moon, the remnants of an imperial fleet drifted aimlessly, ships crippled by subtle gravitational distortions and redirected energy flows. Thanos redirected plasma and warp-laced fire with precision, preventing total annihilation while still neutralizing strategic threats. The Emperor guided psychic currents through the fleet, stabilizing critical systems, preventing cascading destruction, and maintaining the maximum survival of populations where feasible. Yet even with such careful intervention, losses were unavoidable. Small colonies, agricultural outposts, and minor research stations were destabilized, their infrastructure shattered by tidal flows of psychic and cosmic energy. The surviving populations faced immediate crises: starvation, exposure, and the breakdown of social order. The champions observed with a measured gaze, aware that the imposition of balance demanded sacrifice, and that the weight of consequence fell squarely on those far beneath their divine perspective. The warp pulsed violently as demon engines attempted to reorganize, demon princes surged unpredictably, and entire fleets attempted desperate maneuvers. Thanos and the Emperor responded in perfect synchronization, waves of cosmic force and psychic authority neutralizing threats, yet every act of stabilization carried collateral cost. Minor species were uprooted, planetary ecosystems destabilized. Each adjustment required judgment: what to preserve, what to allow to collapse, and which losses were unavoidable to maintain sector-wide equilibrium. Across the sector, the consequences rippled. Civilizations that had thrived under Imperium oversight were suddenly exposed to subtle distortions, technologies destabilized by warp interference, and cultural structures disrupted as populations struggled to adapt. Even loyalist worlds felt tremors, as cosmic and psychic corrections adjusted energy flows, balancing chaos and disorder but exacting a toll in the process. Thanos spoke, voice deliberate, carrying across the void, "Observe, Emperor. Even the most careful intervention carries consequence. The universe demands balance, and balance exacts payment from those unable to comprehend the forces acting upon them. Yet without action, the cost would be universal collapse." The Emperor's aura pulsed gently, threads of psychic energy stabilizing systems still within reach. The mortals bear the immediate cost, but the larger framework of the galaxy is preserved. Sacrifice is unavoidable, and the calculus of intervention must weigh lives against cosmic stability. Our judgment tempers execution, yet the cost remains. Mortals are variables in a game far beyond their comprehension. On a distant oceanic world, demonic corruption had threatened entire planetary oceans. Thanos redirected energy with careful precision, neutralizing sources of warp contamination while preserving water currents where possible. The Emperor projected psychic threads across the seas, stabilizing tidal flows and preventing catastrophic surges. Yet coastal populations still suffered, flooded or displaced by sudden environmental shifts, reminding all that even divine intervention carries a price. Across multiple systems, the same pattern repeated: calculated strikes, psychic stabilization, preservation of potential, and yet unavoidable loss. Worlds burned and were rebuilt simultaneously, life and death measured against cosmic balance, and civilizations forced to adapt to forces beyond comprehension. By the end of the engagement, the sector lay stabilized yet scarred. Demons were neutralized, chaos influence diminished, and the galaxy had witnessed the terrifying efficiency of coordinated cosmic and psychic might. Thanos and the Emperor exchanged a glance, violet and psychic energy pulsing faintly. "Our method is effective," Thanos said. "Yet the cost is undeniable. Balance demands sacrifice." The Emperor inclined his head, aura radiating calm certainty. Mortals, civilizations, and minor races bear the consequences. Yet the sector is preserved. The galaxy can endure. Our alliance demonstrates that power applied with judgment can reshape the universe, though always at a cost. The warp pulsed gently, threads coiling in acknowledgement, stars above shimmering faintly as the sector stabilized. Two titans, bound by purpose and philosophy, had imposed balance at the cost of the many, and the galaxy understood, at last, the true price of godlike intervention. The Eye of Terror shuddered, threads of green and violet energy twisting violently through the void, illuminating shattered moons, derelict fleets, and twisted planetary surfaces. Chaos sensed the presence of two titans, a force that even the most powerful demonic entities hesitated to confront. Thanos hovered above the largest concentration of warp energy, Infinity Gauntlet pulsing faintly, stones vibrating in subtle recognition of the Emperor's psychic aura. The Emperor of Mankind stood beside him, radiant and absolute, threads of psychic light extending into the warp, probing, stabilizing, and assessing the chaotic currents. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, aware that the outcome of this confrontation could reshape the very balance of existence. Thanos' violet eyes scanned the maelstrom, calculating potential vectors, gravitational distortions, and energy flows. Chaos itself recognizes the magnitude of our presence, he said, deliberate. Their forces gather, yet falter. Even gods must acknowledge the emergence of a combined will. The Emperor inclined his head, psychic aura flaring subtly. They perceive our authority, and their dominion trembles. The warp is reactive, adaptive, yet even its currents submit to synchronized execution and judgment. Below, demon legions surged in coordinated waves, demonic engines pulsing with warp energy, and lesser warp-spawned horrors twisting unpredictably through shattered cities and fractured landscapes. Thanos struck decisively, energy waves radiating outward, disassembling structures, neutralizing demon engines, and redirecting volatile warp currents into null zones. Every strike was precise, calculated, aimed at destabilizing chaos without unnecessary destruction. The Emperor followed, projecting psychic threads, neutralizing residual warp currents, stabilizing planetary surfaces, and guiding energy flows to ensure minimal collateral impact on surviving populations. Together, their presence merged raw execution with disciplined control, turning a potential catastrophe into a controlled, efficient demonstration of authority. A massive demon prince erupted from the central rift, crowned with writhing tendrils, eyes blazing with malice, and psychic energy thrumming across its form. Thanos directed a calculated strike, waves of cosmic force bending gravity, disassembling corrupted constructs, and redirecting warp energy harmlessly into voided space. The Emperor projected psychic tendrils into the creature's mind, disrupting its link to the warp and neutralizing its influence on surrounding forces. The combined action was devastating yet controlled, demonstrating the terrifying efficacy of synchronized cosmic and psychic might. Minor warp-spawned entities attempted to converge, but every approach was countered with precise cosmic and psychic intervention. Molten rivers, twisted landscapes, and shattered structures subtly shifted to reinforce strategic advantage, as if the universe itself acknowledged the combined authority of the two titans. Chaos fleets attempted to reorganize, warp lances firing, demon engines surging, and demonic currents coiling unpredictably. Thanos subtly redirected energy flows, bending space and time to collapse enemy formations selectively, while the Emperor stabilized psychic currents, reinforcing allied craft, shielding populations, and neutralizing residual demonic energy. Every strike, every adjustment, every pulse of energy was perfectly synchronized, turning disorder into controlled, strategic advantage. Across multiple systems, worlds quivered and trembled, molten rivers shifted into controlled channels, and cities warped subtly to accommodate the champion's presence. Even minor populations felt the subtle influence, their lives reshaped by the direct and indirect consequences of divine intervention. Where destruction was required, it was applied decisively. Where preservation was possible, it was enforced meticulously. Thanos turned to the Emperor, violet eyes glinting beneath the helm. The alignment of our powers forces even chaos to submit. Their dominion falters, their influence is contained, and the warp responds to our combined authority. The Emperor inclined his head, threads of psychic energy stabilizing the sector. The cosmic reckoning is underway. Our combined will enforces order across these systems. The eye trembles, and reality itself bends to the measure of our power. Yet vigilance remains essential, chaos will adapt, and further challenges await. Demon lords surged again, but even their combined assault could not break the unified force of Thanos and the Emperor. Energy pulses radiated outward, gravitational distortions realigned, and psychic tendrils coiled around every warp current, neutralizing the threats systematically. The eye itself seemed to acknowledge the combined authority, its chaotic energy twisting subtly under the dominion of the two titans. Worlds burned and were stabilized simultaneously. Cities collapsed in controlled waves, then rebuilt with subtle psychic and cosmic guidance. Demonic entities were neutralized, scattered, or forced into containment. The warp pulsed, threads of energy coiling in recognition of the union of execution and judgment. Thanos' strikes were calculated, precise, and purposeful, while the Emperor's psychic authority ensured that no act of destruction exceeded necessity. The combination created a terrifyingly efficient method of imposing balance across multiple systems, forcing chaos to acknowledge the supremacy of their combined will. Even minor races and civilizations, caught between worlds and warp currents, felt the subtle pull of order and authority, their survival dependent on the meticulous application of godlike power. The cost was high, yet calculated. The result, total stabilization and reassertion of cosmic equilibrium across the sector. By the end of the engagement, chaos forces were scattered, demonic entities neutralized, and the Eye of Terror itself quivered in reluctant recognition. Stars above shimmered faintly, and warp threads coiled gently, acknowledging the unprecedented fusion of Thanos' cosmic might and the Emperor's disciplined psychic authority. Thanos spoke, voice low, deliberate, yet carrying across the sector. The cosmic reckoning is complete. Even the greatest forces of disorder must acknowledge our authority. The universe bends where execution and judgment merge. The Emperor inclined his head subtly, aura radiating calm certainty. Chaos is contained for now. Reality itself stabilizes under our combined will. Yet vigilance, precision, and coordination remain essential. The galaxy will measure the consequences of this alliance for generations. The stars pulsed faintly, the warp quieted slightly, and Cantus Nine's shattered remains trembled in recognition. Two titans, once opposed by philosophy and fate, had imposed cosmic order, forcing chaos to acknowledge a new authority and demonstrating the terrifying efficiency of synchronized power and judgment. The void between star systems pulsed faintly with residual warp energy, threads of green and violet coiling across planets, moons, and shattered fleets. Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind hovered above the sector, each radiating immense power, a convergence of cosmic execution and disciplined psychic authority. For countless worlds, their combined will had enforced balance, neutralized chaos, and reshaped corrupted systems. Yet even gods with aligned objectives are not immune to discord, and the subtle divergence of philosophy and method now threatened their fragile unity. Thanos' violet eyes glinted beneath his helm. "Our influence grows," he said, voice deliberate, resonant. "The galaxy bends to order, chaos falters, and yet the measure of restraint you impose slows decisive action. We could purge entire systems more efficiently, accelerate balance with absolute execution." The Emperor's aura flared subtly, threads of psychic light coiling around the sector. "Efficiency alone is not sufficient, Titan. Strength without judgment risks destruction beyond necessity. Lives, civilizations, and minor species are variables in our calculus. I will not sacrifice what can be preserved merely to achieve speed. Balance requires precision, not haste. A tension pulsed between them, subtle but undeniable, as the galaxy itself seemed to respond to the divergence of intent. The warp shivered faintly, threads stretching, reflecting the philosophical discord between two beings of near-equal power. The first signs of instability emerged on a nearby planet. Thanos extended a gauntlet hand, waves of cosmic force pulsating to neutralize residual chaos fortresses, while the Emperor adjusted psychic currents to stabilize warp taint and protect surviving populations. The actions, though complementary in purpose, were executed with differing priorities. Thanos struck decisively, removing entire structures without hesitation, while the Emperor recalibrated energy flows to ensure minimal collateral impact. Minor demonic entities reacted with confusion, unable to anticipate whether they faced immediate annihilation or subtle restraint. Even the warp itself pulsed erratically, threads coiling in acknowledgement of dual forces operating in slight discord. Thanos' voice carried across the void, deliberate yet measured, "Your caution slows us. Chaos adapts, hesitation risks giving them advantage. If we acted purely, with absolute force, the galaxy would be balanced more swiftly. We act within parameters I understand, but your moral limitations interfere with efficiency." The Emperor's aura flared in calm reply, threads tightening subtly. "Efficiency is meaningless if the cost is indiscriminate annihilation. Even chaos must be balanced with foresight. Without judgment, power becomes tyranny. You measure results in immediate output, I measure consequences across centuries. Our methods are complementary, yet misaligned in approach." The subtle divergence escalated as they prepared to strike the largest chaos concentration in the sector. Demonic engines bristled with energy, warp currents twisting unpredictably, and minor warp-spawned creatures surged from fissures and shattered fortresses. Thanos acted with decisive force, crushing fortifications, dispersing demonic units, and redirecting energy flows into nullified zones. The Emperor simultaneously projected psychic tendrils, neutralizing residual warp energy, stabilizing planetary structures, and ensuring civilian and strategic assets remained intact. For a moment, a misalignment occurred. Thanos redirected a surge of warp energy toward a corrupted city, calculated as a tactical advantage, yet the Emperor immediately countered, redirecting the surge to neutralize threats while preserving structures. The resulting collision of intent caused a temporary fluctuation in the warp, threads twisting erratically, and even minor planets in adjacent systems experienced subtle tremors. The chaos of the moment revealed the fragility of even godlike coordination. Had their synchronization failed completely, entire systems could have been destabilized, fleeing civilians caught in warp-tainted surges and demonic entities empowered by the misalignment. Yet both titans immediately adjusted, realigning cosmic and psychic energies, restoring control, and demonstrating the necessity of compromise. Thanos' voice, low and deliberate, reflected measured tension. "See? Even minor hesitation risks failure. The galaxy reacts to our intent, delays invite danger. If our purposes are aligned, then my execution must be unfettered." The Emperor's aura pulsed gently, threads coiling in subtle authority, and yet unchecked force without moral guidance risks annihilation beyond necessity. "We operate in tandem, Titan, but our unity must respect both power and judgment. I will not compromise principle for speed. Our pact is tested not only by chaos, but by the balance of our philosophies." The warp pulsed, threads of energy stretching unpredictably, coiling around the two titans, reflecting cosmic and psychic tensions. Demon lords surged, attempting to exploit the subtle divergence, their malevolent forms sensing hesitation, seeking advantage. Thanos struck decisively, neutralizing targets rapidly, while the Emperor countered, stabilizing the battlefield, enforcing order and recalibrating energy flows. The clash of methods created a temporary imbalance, yet their combined awareness corrected it almost instantly. Across multiple worlds, the subtle consequences manifested. Minor populations were imperiled, structures destabilized where rapid execution conflicted with measured restraint, and warp currents fluctuated briefly before stabilizing under synchronized force. The galaxy witnessed the power and danger inherent in their combined might. By the end of the engagement, the chaos forces were neutralized, scattered, or contained, and the sector stabilized, though the temporary discord had left subtle scars across multiple worlds. Thanos' violet eyes met the Emperor's, a silent acknowledgement that even gods must negotiate alignment, balancing efficiency with judgment, force with foresight. The Emperor inclined his head, aura flaring gently. Our pact is tested, our methods must align continuously, and the galaxy is reminded that even godlike power carries responsibility. Balance is effective, but fragile if philosophical divergence is allowed to fester. The warp coiled softly, threads of green and violet energy stabilizing. Two titans, once potentially at odds, had survived the test of trust, coordination, and philosophical divergence. Their alliance reinforced despite near betrayal, and the galaxy held its breath, aware that the consequences of misalignment were catastrophic. Thanos' voice was calm, deliberate, and unwavering. Our pact is proven, but vigilance is required. Alignment of purpose and method ensures efficiency, and the universe bends to combined will when measured with care. The Emperor's psychic aura flared in acknowledgement, threads stabilizing across the sector. Yes, the galaxy has witnessed the test, and our alliance endures. Chaos may respond, but the balance of power is now guided by wisdom and execution alike. Centuries had passed since Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind had first forged their unparalleled alliance, and the galaxy bore the echoes of their combined will in every star, every planet, and every warp-threaded current. Worlds once corrupted by chaos had been purged, then subtly stabilized and partially restored by threads of psychic energy intertwined with the lingering influence of the Infinity Gauntlet. Entire star systems remembered the presence of the Titans, their influence etched into planetary crusts, orbiting debris, and cosmic currents alike. On Cantus 9, now quiet and scarred, molten rivers had cooled into black glass-like surfaces, spires leaned at precarious angles, yet persisted, and the faint residual pulse of warp threads whispered across the barren landscape. Thanos stood on a jagged ridge, violet eyes gleaming beneath his helm, hands relaxed at his sides, Infinity Gauntlet pulsing subtly, sensing the current of the galaxy that had been altered permanently by their interventions. The Emperor hovered beside him, aura radiating calm authority, threads of psychic light stretching into the void, connecting systems, stabilizing warp currents, and weaving balance across multiple sectors. The galaxy had learned to fear and revere the names of the Titans. Mortals spoke of them in whispers, telling stories of a green-armored Titan whose purpose was absolute, and a golden psychic sovereign whose judgment reshaped worlds. Chaos, for its part, recoiled from sectors touched by their influence, demonic armies scattered, energy currents dissipated, and the Eye of Terror itself remained partially subdued, its malevolent influence diminished wherever the Titans had acted. Minor races and civilizations still bore scars from their interventions, but those who survived thrived under a new order, their societies subtly guided by the invisible influence of execution tempered with judgment. The Imperium rebuilt its fleets, restored its colonies, and chronicled the deeds of the Titans as a mixture of awe, fear, and legend. Codices detailed orbital assaults, planetary purges, and warp stabilizations, yet even these could not capture the full measure of their combined might. In distant sectors, fleets paused mid-maneuver as warp currents pulsed irregularly, sensing the faint resonance of cosmic and psychic authority left behind. Thanos and the Emperor had acted with a precision that exceeded comprehension, reshaping systems in a way that had removed chaos, yet left the galaxy intact enough to continue, to grow, to adapt, and to remember. Legends of their cooperation grew over centuries, myths intertwined with historical fact, and every imperial fleet, every planetary governor, and every psychic-sensitive being sensed the lingering weight of their presence. Children born on worlds affected by their strikes spoke of heroes who moved between stars, shaping the cosmos with will and judgment, and even scholars in isolated archives acknowledged that balance was not merely enforced, but meticulously calculated, refined, and maintained by titanic forces. The Eye of Terror remained a reminder that chaos had not been fully destroyed, yet it had been tempered, contained, and stabilized across sectors. Demons that had once ravaged entire systems were now diminished, scattered, and hesitant, aware that two beings of unrivaled authority had asserted dominance. The warp itself had been partially subdued, its currents flowing in subtle alignment with the principles imposed by the Titans. Even as new threats emerged, the legacy of the Alliance imposed a subtle caution across the galaxy, shaping reactions, strategies, and perceptions for generations. On Cantus 9, Thanos surveyed the remains of the battlefields, the ruined spires, the cooled rivers, and the faintly glowing warp scars. He raised a gauntlet hand slightly, feeling the echo of power still flowing across the sector. Centuries later, the universe remembers. Chaos endures, but it hesitates. Balance persists where previously only entropy reigned. The Emperor's aura pulsed softly, threads of psychic energy coiling across multiple systems. Our actions have left the galaxy altered. Mortals, civilizations, and minor races continue to feel the consequences, yet order is maintained, balance has been imposed, and the influence of our combined judgment continues to resonate. History and myth will remember both the price and the efficiency of our intervention. Across the galaxy, codices recorded fragments of their deeds. Worlds rebuilt with residual stabilization, warp taint receded where possible, and fleets moved under a faintly palpable guidance, as if the galaxy itself had absorbed a measure of divine calculation. The names of Thanos and the Emperor became synonymous with authority, balance, and overwhelming, measured might. They were neither tyrants nor merciful saints. They were the arbiters of consequence, the architects of a new order, and the galaxy endured in recognition of their fusion. Even chaos remembered, demonic currents twisting and recoiling wherever their influence had reached, sensing that new challenges now demanded caution. The Titans' alliance had created an enduring imprint, a permanent testament to the power of synchronized purpose, execution, and judgment. Centuries later, minor populations still whispered their names, children heard stories of Titans who moved between stars, and scholars debated the exact methods of their triumphs. The galaxy, in its vastness, had been shaped irrevocably, civilizations rebuilt, systems stabilized, and the balance imposed by Thanos and the Emperor continued to ripple across the stars. Thanos inclined his head subtly to the Emperor, the faintest gesture of acknowledgement across eons of consequence. We acted decisively, yet measuredly. The universe bears our imprint. Balance has been imposed, and it endures. The Emperor extended a hand slightly, threads of psychic energy coiling gently across the void. The galaxy will remember the price, the method, and the efficiency. Chaos persists, yet it has learned caution. Mortals endure, civilizations adapt, and the legacy of our alliance is etched across time itself. The stars above shimmered faintly, threads of warp energy lingering as subtle reminders, and the galaxy, vast and unending, remembered. Legends, myths, fear, and admiration echoed across millennia, as the universe internalized the consequences of godlike intervention. Thanos and the Emperor of Mankind had acted as one, and their legacy endured, eternal, undeniable, and woven into the very fabric of reality.